Hi, this is Pierre SABAK, Unlocking the Keys to the Mysteries. Now today we're going to be looking at Anthropos. Again, the term Anthropos is referred to in my book Holographic Culture. Now the word Anthropos appears throughout Gnostic literature, and it's really important to try and deconstruct what this word means because it has a number of meanings. The way in which the word is applied obviously depends on the context. Now the Greek word anthropos means human. It's used within the Gnostic traditions to refer to the three archetypical races. Now these three races are traced back to the first creation. Now the first creation is the creation of the universe and the creation of all form. This is not to be confused with the second creation. The second creation is the planting of the Adamic races upon the earth by the Elohim. This is very distinct or very different from the first creation, which is the universal spirit or the absolute, which creates everything. It creates mankind, it creates the Elohim, it creates everything. Now the anthropos is a figurative expression, and therefore it's used to refer to the three intelligent humanoid races or essences. Okay, and these three races go back to an angelic tradition. So for example, we have out of the three prototypical races, we would have the seraph, which links into the spiritual tradition, which are identified with the jinn. The serapha, which is fire, which are the flaming ones. They're correlated with the watchers, which is a non-human angel or a reptile. We've got the cherub, which is the proto-human angel. This is identified with the material or that which is physical. If you wanted to deconstruct the symbolism, you could see that there's a relationship between the Ru'akh and the high spirits, which could be manifested as the jinn or the shining ones. Then you've got the Elacheh, again, which is a high creature. The cherubim themselves can be represented as that which is material. And then you've got the jinn, which is psychic, so this is a psychic species. And these three different races which are formed, the anthropos, are part of the tripartite. Now, I don't want you to be too literal when you look at, for example, at the seraphim, which are part of the anthropos, because although the word means human, obviously the seraphim is non-human. This is a reptilian angel. This is a non-human being. But the term anthropos is used to refer to a sentient being. So for example, if we were using the word anthropos in English and we were using it to refer to a grey alien, for example, or that which is alien, we would refer to we would say the being looked like a humanoid. So the anthropos is referring to a being which superficially looks humanoid, but more importantly is sentient. So is therefore identified with that which is human. And this is important because when we're dealing with angelic beings, within the Greek, they could be represented as human and therefore sentient, and this could literally mean that they appeared human or were human, proto-human usually, which would be the cherubim, but we also have a species of angel which are Homo sapien. So for example, the Ishim is a Homo sapien angel, which is different from the cherubim, which are proto-humans. But anyway, the seraphim themselves are described as human in terms of that they can that they are sentient, that they are human-like. So the angels themselves, these three distinctions, which are the first creation, the cherubim being proto-human, you've got the jinn and the seraphim, this refers to the tripartite. These are the divisions of the Illuminati, and this is very much how the Illuminati seeded the races on the earth as well. This links into this. Now, exotheologically, there was a fall in heaven. This was a war, and this is referred to as the corruption of the anthropos, and it refers to the fall of creation. In the book of Genesis, this would be the eating of the fruit of knowledge, in which Adam is tempted by Eve. The symbol of Eve is often tied into the symbol of the serpent. Now, within Gnostic traditions, the fall of creation is correlated specifically with the Demiurge, Demiurgos, which means the public craftsman. Now, the public craftsman is a craftsman who created humanity. So therefore, we could understand the public craftsman as being a genetic engineer. A genetic engineer. He created physical forms and he planted these forms on the earth, which in the Quranic tradition is referred to as the second creation. In the Greek traditions, this is panspermia, or the planting of the seed upon the earth. So the Demiurgos is a genetic engineer, and he is ascribed to the second creation. As we said before, the second creation shouldn't be confused with the first creation, which is the creation of all forms, which is the creation of the material universe through the aeon. The aeon would be the interference pattern or the holographic universe. Now, as we said before, the holographic universe is important because this ties into the holographic cultures. Holographic cultures are entities which have deconstructed the material component to reality. They've deconstructed reality, and therefore they can exist in and out of time, and they can control time and space. Therefore, for example, within the biblical tradition, the Elohim or the Archons, these are all considered to be a holographic culture. So therefore they are typically represented as a Elokeh, a high creature, but are also dematerialized as a Ru'akh Elohim, a high spirit. So the second creation is the planting of the Adamic races. Now, the Adamic races is a combined bloodline, or is a bloodline which has been manipulated in order to make a conduit, which means that basically the Adamic bloodlines are compatible both with the cherubim, which are the proto-human angels, and also the seraphim. Now, the combination of the seraphim and the human links into a grafted bloodline, hence the relationship between Malach, an angel, and Melech, a king. This is a grafted or a stitched bloodline, a woven bloodline. These are all descriptions, metaphors used to describe the cloning of bloodlines, or the combining. The word clone is a twig. The idea is of combining or of grafting a bloodline. Now, we can see then that the Demiurge, the builder, is also tied into symbolism of a royal or a heavenly authority, which, as we said before, is tied into this grafted or stitched bloodline. Typically, this would be represented as a worm or a serpent with a lion's head, and therefore the Demiurge is typically depicted as this combined lineage. So it's this grafted or combined lineage between the human element and the serpent element, or the seraphim. Now, the Demiurge, or the creation of the Demiurge, was seen to be as an abomination, and as we said earlier in my introduction, this led to a war in heaven, and it led to the destruction of humanity and the replanting of humanity. This is encoded within the Greek traditions. But we see then that there's this correlation between the Demiurge and his demonic hosts, and these are the fallen angels, or the war within heaven. Now, in many respects, the Demiurge is antithetical to the Anthropos, because the Anthropos is the perfect human. And when I talk about the human, I'm here talking about the unadulterated races. So we're talking about the seraphim, whose bloodline is not contaminated. We're talking about the human bloodline, which is not contaminated. And by this, I don't want people to draw any racial inferences here, because the Adamic bloodline has been created. So all of humanity on the earth is this Adamic bloodline, and we have been created or planted, we have been tweaked. When I talk about the pure bloodline, I'm talking about the cherubim, or this angelic bloodline, which is proto-human, and again is very distinct from the Adamic angels, which are identical to ourselves. The Adamic angels are the Ishim, which are different from the cherubim, or this proto-bloodline. So the Anthropos, therefore, is this ideal or archetypical man before his corruption, or the fall, which is the corruption of the Anthropos. Now, this is encoded within Gnosticism in terms of the material and the manifestation of the material form, in opposition to the spirit, or a projection of the material into the spirit. But underlining these ideas is the encoding of the Anthropos, and this encoding of these grafted bloodlines. Now, the division or the split or the corruption of the Anthropos feeds into this idea of the dialectic. Now, the dialectic is this compartmentalization of knowledge between human angels, which are the cherubim, the proto-human angels, and the seraphim, which are non-human angels. And these two traditions are dualed they're antagonistic, and this forms part of what is known as the dialectic. And we find the dialectic therefore split or compartmentalized within the priesthood. So all of the divisions of the priesthood are compartmentalized between this proto-human tradition, which goes back to proto-human angels, and then the seraphic tradition, or non-human angels. And the priesthood itself is therefore antithetical and is therefore divided. Now, if we looked at the depiction of the Demiurge, which is linked into the Anthropos, and the combining of the Anthropos, or the corruption of the Anthropos, which feeds into the idea of the spirit, which then is materialized in the physical form. This led to the combining of the Anthropos, which led to the corruption of the Anthropos. Now, the Demiurge is also identical in symbology to the cult of Mithraism, which is an Iranian cult, and so we see that the god Deus Arimanus is therefore depicted as the Demiurge. We see it's a lion-headed god. We also see that he's got the serpent, which is combined with the leg or the foot, because the serpent's footprint is a genetic fingerprint in today's language, but in the ancient languages it was a genetic footprint. And we also see that the Demiurge, or also Arimanus, he holds the sword. The sword is a signifier of the human angelic lineage, which are the cherubim. Kerev is the Hebrew word for a sword. And we see that the sword, therefore, is found within the human component in terms of human angels. So, for example, Islam is typically represented as the religion of the sword. This is not literal. This is a representation that Islam finds its common denomination, or it originated from the cherubim angels originally. Now, so we see then that Ahriman is basically the Demiurge, and they're all basically manifestations of the same idea. So, also with the Demiurge, typically the Demiurge, as we find also with Ahriman, he is shown as holding a key to heaven. Now, sometimes Ahriman, or the Demiurge, is shown as standing on a circle. The circle can be combined with the zodiac. Sometimes the circle is used to represent the earth. Typically it's thought to represent the earth. But of course we can see also that there's a correlation within the Semitic languages between seraph and sephira, which is a sphere or a circle. This would actually feed into the traditions of the ophanim, because the ophanim are circular. Now, the ophanim is an angelic vessel which carries an angel, and so angels originate from these vessels. So basically, the Demiurge, if we want to sum up the Demiurge is the builder, he's the creator or the planter of bloodlines. He's not the original creator, because the original creator was the spirit, which created the first creation. The Demiurge is part of what is known as the second creation, in which he planted bloodlines and which he merged or combined or grafted bloodlines, typically between the serpent and the human being. And this is the second creation, or panspermia. And so that basically is a deconstruction of the symbolism of the Demiurge, and how the Demiurge fits in both into the traditions of the Anthropos, which are aligned to the tripartite, or the tripartite Illuminati, which are the three divisions of the Illuminati, essentially the human, non-human component and the grafted component. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. If you do like this video, please subscribe, please give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again shortly. Let's try and make this a better world. Thank you very much. This is PIERRE SABAK. Thank you.